Bum,
Bum,
bada,
bada,
bum,
bum,
bada,
bum,
bum. Welcome to yet another Music Feed podcast. Ryan, is this our 9th episode?
Yep, it's our night.
Well, in the past, we've talked about many of today's artists, such as Rihanna, Kanye West, and Paramore. But today we are going way back to the 60s and talking about what people call the first pop culture icons in the music industry. If you haven't guessed who it is already, it is the Beatles. You probably think that they have nothing to do with the music you listen to, but they do.
I would have to agree. Because before the Beatles were ever a band, nobody in the serious press paid attention to rock and roll.
Music critics 40 years ago never gave the popular mass market a second thought, but as the Beatles transcended the traditional confines of pop music, a more cultured and literate audience took notice.
So tell me then, who were the Beatles?
The Beatles consisted of 4 young lads out of Liverpool, England: John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison. Inspired by Elvis more than any other artist, they were determined to amount to something. In George's words,
We just had this amazing inner feeling of, we're going to do it. I don't know why, we were just cocky.
and 6 years later, the Beatles were the 4 most famous musical men, not only in England, but on the earth. The Beatles were the best dressed, and on a good day, the most captivating people anyone can remember.
And to quote from Derek Taylor's book, The 50 Years Adrift, to help you understand just how popular they were.
I've never seen anything like it, nor heard any noise to approximate the ceaseless, frantic, hysterical scream which met the Beatles when they took the stage after what seemed 100 years of earlier acts. All very good, all marking time, because no one had come for anything other than the Beatles. Then the theater went wild. First aidmen and police patrolled the aisles, 1 to every 3 rows. Many girls fainted. 30 were gently carried out, protesting in their hysteria, forlorn and wretched in an unrequited love for 4 lads who might have lived next door. No one could remain seated, clutching each other, hurling jelly babies at the stage, beating their brows. The youth of Britain's second city surrendered themselves totally.
Sounds kind of like the Jonas Brothers today.
No, not quite. The Beatles were different from all other Liverpool bands. There was nothing controlled or neat about them. They were the opposite of neat.
They were fierce, rip-roaring, they had real muscle, and vigorous drumming.
John, Paul, George, and Ringo were the 4 young men who unknowingly changed the face of the music world forever. The significance of the Beatles, not only in terms of their effect on popular music, but also their impact upon social mores and attitudes, cannot be overestimated.
Less than 10 years of the Beatles had turned the tables. The Fab Four began to dominate pop culture across the globe, and directly triggered a youth revolution, whose impact is still felt over 40 years later.
Well, folks, we hope you learned something new these last few minutes, and until then, this is Jenny.
And Ryan.